The essence of basketball. I don't know if you can be a basketball player without experience.
B-Ball Radio. Ooh-wee. What up, everybody? Peace. My name is Bobbito E-New, a.k.a. Cool Bob Love, the co-host, co-producer, extraordinaire, NBA analyst. His name is
Eric Newman, E-New. Sunday morning, we are in a rhythm. It is the beginning of a holiday week. And Bob, before we start, it's always an adventure out here on the West Coast when I am going to pick up a package.
What?
From my package room.
Oh,
and
okay. It's
Bob?
an interesting starting point. Are we going to talk about like UPS and FedEx? Oh!
Fresh merch.
Woo! For our audio listeners only, he just pulled out a Stretch and Bobbito exclusive limited edition hoodie. There's less than 50 of those in the world, and E. Newman is one of the wearers. That is lovely, bro. If you do not know, and if you are just listening in an Uber or a taxi or a train to someone else's speakers, we are B-Ball Radio, a podcast dedicated to the culture and history of not just the NBA, but playground basketball as well in all its forms and facets. My name is Bobbito Garcia, a.k.a. Cool Bob Love. E-New is going to drive this episode with a recap of the past week in the in-season tournament, a forecast of the upcoming games, as well as the cultural impact of his all-time tournament featuring 4 teams. If you listen to our episode 13, you know what 16 teams are in the all-time tournament. But we're going to jump off. So don't go anywhere because the all-time stuff is truly evergreen and important. But let's just do a quick recap, Eric. What were you excited about? What got you amped in the past week of in-season tournament play?
One word. Joker. He's back.
He's back. What do you mean he's
First
back?
of all,
He's been here. What do you mean he's back?
This hoodie is so comfortable, and it's literally the perfect Celtic green. Joker was out for a few games due to personal reasons.
Okay.
And he comes back in that matchup that we had hoped to see him in on Friday against Dallas. Dallas playing without Luka Doncic. Dallas goes up 20 in that game, ends up holding on, but Joker has his 5th straight triple-double. And the Denver Nuggets it's a very interesting team right now with Aaron Gordon out. And we talked about this.
The Regulator. I nicknamed him the Regulator.
The Regulator. It's a perfect name.
I love his name.
Yeah, I
love his game.
But really a perfect name for the role he stepped into with the Nuggets. Because he literally gives them a little of what they need on both ends of the floor. So without Aaron Gordon and some of these young players starting to find their way in their roles, of course, with the addition also of Russell Westbrook, the Nuggets have been a very interesting watch this year. But what Joker continues to do from a statistical standpoint, a presence standpoint, and Saturday night in LA, which was not an in-season tournament, he has another masterpiece performance, and the Nuggets beat the Lakers. Another a near triple-double. Didn't quite get it on the assist, but going into the weekend, Bob, he's leading the league in 3-point percentage. He's leading the league in rebounding. He's leading the league in assists.
And has that ever happened at any point?
No.
Ever?
No, it's never happened.
An assist leader who's also the 3-point leader. That's crazy.
Who's playing the 5? I said this when we talked about Steph Curry's performance against the Mavericks when Klay Thompson returned to the Bay. Yep. I made the comp to MJ in the second three-peat. I made the comp to Tom Brady. It's how I felt about Jerry Rice. I'm putting Joker there now, even though he has so much more of his prime. Like, I'm tuning in whenever possible because the greatness around this guy. Joker is...
It's like 25, 27?
No, he's older than that, I think.
He's older than that?
He'll be 30 in February.
Oh, okay.
41st overall pick, 2014 NBA draft. The guy's been in the league 10 years already.
That's cuckoo, yo. He got drafted in the second round.
Yeah.
What?
And you look at the
I can't believe that.
you look at the statistical climb of this guy. Didn't play his first year. Played pro. They waited for him. And then what's interesting in Denver was a big man who's now the starting. He was the starting center for Phoenix, Yusuf Nurkic. He was their guy first, and then they realized what they had, and they moved him. And he actually had some very good years in Portland. But Joker is what I wanted to talk about mainly, because what this guy is doing, he's rewriting history books in front of our eyes. And we've started the season with a bit of a negative narrative around the league, with great players sitting out, load management, the Embiid stuff going on in Philly, TV ratings supposedly down, which a lot of it I think has to do with social media and the way young people consume basketball content, not watching full games like this crazy old head over here.
Yeah.
But what Joker's doing is truly remarkable. And to translate that from NBA to the park, can you imagine showing up at the park, playing with the most willing, team-friendly 5-man in the world, and all you have to do is move without the ball, and you're getting a three or a back cut, and who knows? Just can you share, as somebody who has played so much incredible basketball in so many different venues, and this was the start of, I think, how our friendship grew when we played on the court together, just playing in that beautiful together way. How special is that when you're out there playing pickup or when you're watching it on the big screen?
Yeah, I have to say, there was a dude named Wavy Ivy, right, in the early '80s when I was coming up at the GOAT. Legendary Park, produced multiple NBA players, Mario Elie, Reggie Carter, Earl Manigault, the legend, was there. But, Wavy, anytime he walked into the park, immediately pick up. Yo, Wave, you want to run with us? And the crazy thing is, Eric, he never shot the ball. And he was not in great shape. He was not fast. But Wavy would always set you up. And so he was a valuable piece to any pickup run. I'm talking about like D1 player, Daryl Carter, Reggie Carter's younger brother who played at UMass Amherst. We had Ronnie Ryer from Wichita State. Wavy will always get picked up. And I think the thing with Jokic is that, like, you want to play with a dude who's going to give the ball up and not be a hog. And in the midst of 14 to 16 dribbles, which some players will do to get an open shot, it's almost like a throwback to the Wooden era, and John Wooden, the coach, was inspired by the Harlem Wrens of the 20s and 30s and 40s. But this is like a throwback to like a century ago in terms of ball movement and moving without the ball. But at the same time, it's a move forward in that a five is shooting that well, because we had Dirk, fantastic 3-point shooter, with height, Kevin Durant, but Jokic is playing down low as well as on the perimeter plus passing, so he kind of gains his own stature there. Wilt, at some point people kept on calling him a nut in the '60s, and he said, you know what, I'm going to lead the league in assists, and he went out and did it. Chamberlain, who scored 100 points in one game, led the league in assists. Now, he wasn't shooting threes, though. So we're seeing an evolution of the game. You're spot on with that, Eric. But let's move on to a forecast of this upcoming week.
Real quick, Bob.
Yes. Okay.
Joker.
Did I trigger?
No. I had to pull up the numbers. So okay. This is his last 5 games. 4 of them triple doubles with 3 missed games in the middle. 23 points, 16 assists, 20 rebounds. 30 points, 14 assists, 11 rebounds. 37 points, 15 assists, 18 rebounds. Then he sits 3. Then he comes back for 33, 10 assists, 17 rebounds, and 34, 8 assists, and 13 rebounds in LA on Saturday night. And the field goal percentage is 45%, 85%, 62%, 59%, 60% from the floor. The efficiency here is just staggering, not to mention the consecutive triple doubles.
Yeah, that's bananas.
But I reverse pivot back to you.
Ha ha ha. No, I'm sending it back to you. Let's get a forecast because I'm dying to get to the all-time bracket.
So week ahead, what's happening? In case you're new to this in-season tournament right now, the NBA plans 2 games, two nights a week where there are in-season tournament games and matchups in the different groups. So right now, everyone has played 2 in-season tournament games at least, if not 3. So teams' records could be 0-3, 1-2, 2-1, 1-1, 2-0, etc. So on Tuesday, the 12-6 overall Houston Rockets, who are 2-0 in the West Group A, are facing the 8-7 overall Minnesota Timberwolves, who are 1-1 in that group. And the reason why I picked that matchup is Minnesota had such a terrific season last year, and then they made the Karl Anthony Towns for Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo trade just ahead of the season, and they are not the same team. And while Randall is very talented and fits the position that Cat vacated, but they are different players, and DiVincenzo gives them a needed boost, both as a combo ball handler and a shooter in that backcourt to support Anthony Edwards. This team hasn't found a rhythm yet, where the Houston Rockets, who are 12-6, clearly look like not a play-in team. They clearly look like a playoff team. So I'm really excited to see, can Houston continue that on the road in Minnesota against a team that I think right now, however they're viewing the in-season tournament, whether or not they're putting a lot of stock in it or not, they need a statement win, and they need one at home. So I think that game is going to be very interesting. And then big week ahead for the Lakers. So they're in Group B. They're 2-0 in Group B. They're 10-6 overall. They lost at home Saturday night to Joker and Denver. They go to Phoenix to face the 9-7 Suns, who are 1-1 in that group. The Suns started the
Suns are 9-7 now. Didn't they start out the gate like
after starting 8-1?
Yeah,
after starting 8-1. So obviously, the slide there is due to the fact that Kevin Durant has been out of the lineup since November 8th. So Phoenix right now started the year strong. They addressed their backcourt in the offseason because last year was point guard by committee. They added Tyus Jones. They just need a win. And the fact that this is an in-season tournament game and it is the Lakers raised my antenna that much more because of how they started the season versus how they're looking right now. So that's on Tuesday. On Friday, and this is all Western Conference. The East just wasn't that interesting for the week ahead, despite the Celtics being on the schedule. And on Friday, and obviously we don't know what the records are going to be by Friday, but it's Lakers again because they host the Thunder. And that is a high-level Western Conference game that is also an in-season tournament game. The Thunder, of course, playing a lot of small ball with Chet Holmgren sideline. So this is going to be a very entertaining game, but dependent on what the Lakers do earlier in the week, the Thunder 1-1 in group play will determine how important this game is for the in-season tournament. And then I'll admit it, I was wrong. I thought the Los Angeles Clippers were going to be at best, sniff the play-in for a lot of the season because Kawhi Leonard won't be on the floor, Paul George is gone, and they just don't have enough. Norman Powell has been outstanding for them. James Harden has been terrific. And the Clippers have a winning record. And they go into Minnesota on Friday night, which will also be another in-season tournament game. And I'm picking that game because the Clippers, similar to the Timberwolves, are figuring out who they are, but the Clippers are going in one direction up, and the Timberwolves are kind of just muddling here. So credit Ty Lue. And out here in LA, there's a lot of people just excited about how hard the Clippers are playing, the new dome. People are going and having incredible experiences over there. So those are my in-season tournament games of the week to watch. Mark it down.
Love it. I want to make just a couple of pepper comments. I recently discovered that Calvin Murphy, Houston Rocket, great, and
the great Calvin Murphy,
right? Free throw percentage, historic and all time. And
correct me if I'm wrong. He made 78 free throws consecutive.
I'm not going to correct you because I'd be talking out of my butthole. If I don't know, but
I'm sorry. I just took the ball right out of your hands.
No. It's fine. But listen, I saw something online where Calvin Murphy suffered a concussion during a game for the Rockets and suited up in a hockey helmet and played days later when he should not have. But he was on the court in an NBA game with a hockey helmet on. Yo, that bugged me out. I've never seen nothing like that, but gives you a clue about how dedicated some of the cats were in the 70s and 80s to play. Going back to the Clippers, you mentioned how great they're playing now. And, what came to mind was that Sports Illustrated cover of Lloyd Free, who later became World B. Free out of Brooklyn. Brownsville Rec Center graduate and one of the most phenomenal scorers in the NBA in the late 70s and early 80s, alongside Bernard King, another Brooklyn product. And, but just seeing World B play for the Clippers in that era, for the Warriors as well, and then eventually for the Sixers. I mean, man, his height on his jumper was just like something to be seen. And he's the only player that I've ever seen who can shoot on his way up, at the height of his jump, or on his way down. Go find footage of World B. Free or Lloyd B. Free. Was he Lloyd B. Free or just Lloyd Free? I don't remember. Tremendous ball player. Anyway, can we get, now that I'm speaking about the archives, can we get to the all-time tournament?
Yeah, real quick. I found the Calvin Murphy photo.
In the helmet.
He's in a blue hockey helmet. So we'll
doesn't even match the Rockets uniform. Like, what were they?
We'll play that in a social cut. Guess where the game was played?
At the Knicks?
At the Boston Garden.
Oh.
Hysterical. And Calvin Murphy's free throw record is 78 consecutive made free throws.
Oof.
And that was done from December 27th, 1980 through February 28th, 1981, which is the season that the Rockets, as a huge underdog led by Moses Malone, end up going to the NBA Finals. They knock off the Spurs along the way. The Lakers are upset early on. If you watch Winning Time, that's where Magic Johnson has a huge issue with Lakers coach Paul Westhead.
Mm-hmm.
And the Rockets play the Celtics, and that's Larry Bird's first title. So Calvin Murphy, hockey helmet, free throw record, World Be Free, on the way up, on the way down, only here on B-Ball Radio.
Yo, you know what? I have a topic for a future episode I just thought about. I don't think Calvin Murphy ever won an NBA final.
Did not.
Nor did World Be Free.
Did not.
So at some point, we should do an all-time list of the greatest players without a ring. Of course, Stockton goes in there to immediate mind. Barkley,
Ewing.
Yeah. There's some heavyweights that are in the Hall of Fame without a ring. Bernard King. So we should do that. That could, with your mind, especially players in the 2000s.
Next week on B-Ball Radio.
Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook,
James
Harden. Yeah, I mean, that's a phenomenal list of players. I mean, it doesn't doesn't detract from their greatness. I don't think it does. But anyways, but that's a
I
topic
think
for another conversation.
yes, I think the only way you could make a case that it detracts from their greatness is if they were there and they were on the doorstep as the leaders of their team and they didn't get it done, but they were there.
I mean,
So I would
listen,
love to delve into that conversation.
Allen
That'll be a
Iverson
good
does
one.
not have a ring.
Nope.
And nobody detracts from his greatness because of that.
The team Allen Iverson dragged to the 2001 NBA Finals should have its own place in history as
There you go.
A celebration and an award.
All right, so we'll get back to that. But now on to the in-season tournament devised by
the bracket, yeah.
NBA analyst Eric Newman.
Am I NBA analyst or am I NBA historian? What do you think?
I'm gonna go with NBA analyst because I think I'm projecting the future of your career. I'm putting it in the universe.
Projecting the future while spotlighting the past.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Let's do some merch.
It's a good story. From Cornell University play-by-play to NBA analyst on national TV. I love it. It's a good rags to riches.
from speed deficient Division III wide receiver to NBA analyst and historian / filmmaker / content creator / basketball coach. Yeah,
I love it.
Let's do it.
All right, so what do we got? What do we got?
So I've had a lot of fun with this.
This is the moment
right?
our listeners been waiting for, like for real.
Well, I'm building the suspense a little bit longer, partly because I'm trying to get my graphical elements in place for this, right? So last week we laid out, inspired by the in-season tournament, inspired by the bracket craziness, which is usually reserved for March Madness. And yes, there's a 16-team NBA playoff bracket every spring, but people don't live in that bracket like they do the college basketball bracket. So I wanted to speak to NBA greatness and celebrate great teams and players while we're discussing the real time of the in-season tournament. And I came up with my own mad scientist way of selecting the 16, what I felt were the 16 best championship teams since the Bird Magic era began, while spreading the wealth, right? So the 92 Bulls are in there. I'm not also putting the 93 Bulls, but of course the 96 Bulls are in there, who were 72-10, who had a much different team makeup than 93, and we'll get to that in a moment. So before we get into the rollout of the matchups and who advances, which will start next week, that'll be a holiday gift for everybody. In tier 1 that I laid out last week, I laid out 4 tiers of 4 teams per tier. And tier 1, who I feel are the 4 greatest teams in this exercise and in the last 45 years: the 96 Bulls, the 86 Celtics, the 87 Lakers, and the 2017 Warriors. I wanted to connect the dots with you.
That's a tough bracket, bro.
Oh yeah, but they're going to be spread out. Those will be the top 4 seeds, right?
Oh,
so
I see. I got it.
That'll be 1 through 4, not competing with each other. But what I wanted to talk with you about today is because we see the game and we see the impact of the NBA, I think, in different ways, right? So I wanted to speak with you about the cultural impact of these teams tied to their players, their locations, and of course the time periods. So I want to work backwards from present to past. And the Warriors, for so many reasons, could be the last dynasty we see in the NBA for a really, really long time because of the business of the game, because of some of these rule changes. Obviously, I'm hoping the Celtics turn into the next Warriors-like dynasty with the championship opportunity they have here. But Bob, with Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, you talk about just overall firepower, beauty of the game, guys with their own signature shoes, guys making so much money off the floor. what's the first thing that just presents itself to you about the cultural impact of that Warriors team? 3 homegrown talents, and then of course adding Durant in free agency the summer of 16.
Um, well, I'd like to say that when 3 pointers became highly relevant in the NBA, I think the Knicks actually, when they had Rod Strickland and Mark Jackson in the backcourt, were one of the first teams to really put a premium on putting the rock up from distance on a regular basis, game to game. I don't know, don't quote me
Yeah,
on
it's
that.
the 1988-89 Rick Pitino coached New York Knicks
Yeah,
team that went by the Bomb Squad.
yeah, yeah. And so Mark and Rob were both in the leaders of 3-point shooting that season. And but when we jump forward to what Clay and Steph were doing, it really sets a tone for what's happened since, not just in arenas, but also in the playground, right? Where
Yep.
there's such a premium for outdoor shooting. I mean, for outside shooting, uh, that really I don't know that the strategy prior to that was completely bought in, right? There were teams who were like, "Hey, let's shoot 3 pointers. If we shoot 30% from three, and shoot 10, that's 12 points. If the other team shoots 50% and shoots 10 times, that's 10 points. So it's mathematically, it's a better strategy. But no, I feel like everybody bought into it off of the success of the fact that they won the championship in the way that they did, including the fact that Draymond and Durant could shoot threes as well. Right, so you have 4 of the 5 players that can shoot threes, not just like one specialist like a Craig Hodges or a Paxson, but you have like 4 specialists, right? And I think even watching like pickup and AAU and you know it's insane to me. There'll be a player in the paint 5 feet away with an open layup and they kick out. And I'm just like, it's unnerving to me as the coach inside of me and the player
Yep.
inside of me is like, yo, you got a chippy, bro. Put the ball in the hole. But then they're kicking out. And then what happens if the teammate misses, then you got a long rebound. It's a fast break the other way. So yeah, I don't know that we're going to stay in this current wave, but also know that percentages are increasing because kids are training more, and the perception and the confidence at long distance is improving. So, but yeah, definitely an impact there with the 2017's Warriors, and props for what they did. That goes down in history.
You couldn't have presented it any better on the impact that the Warriors had on the culture of spreading the ball around, shooting the three, but not shooting the three and being competitive, shooting the three with that talent,
And
playing
winning.
beautiful team basketball
Yep. Yep.
and winning in a historic way. And we can't, as we're doing this, and this week we're going to talk about the Warriors. We're going to talk about the Bulls. We'll save the Celtics and the Lakers for next week because the 86 Celtics and the 86 Lakers are so intertwined.
Mm.
But there's nobody intertwined with the 96 Bulls. And when Michael Jordan comes back from his retirement, which itself was a cultural zeitgeist moment, losing his father, going to play baseball, and then simply announcing with the Sports Illustrated cover, "I'm back." And that excitement, he returns in spring of 95. That's my junior year of high school. And then, of course, the 95-96 Bulls is my senior year in high school, which was such an exciting time because that's where I had such an incredible team basketball experience with the guys I grew up playing with and had an incredible ride. Watching the 96 Bulls, and you heard me say this earlier in the show tied to Jokic, you heard me say this last week tied to the greatness of Steph Curry. It was appointment television to watch and consume the greatness of Michael Jordan as he came back to basketball. So he gave us like the perfect tease taste. during the brief return in 95, the 55 at the Garden,
Mm-hmm.
buzzer beaters, some playoff excitement where they ultimately fall to Orlando. You knew his gamesmanship was still there when he changes his jersey number to 45 to 23 in the middle of the
Mm-hmm.
playoffs to let Orlando know, like, I'm still here. I don't have the spring in my step yet.
Yeah.
So by the time 96 comes around, it's MJ rested with a chip on his shoulder and ready to go. And I shouldn't say rested as in he sat around all offseason,
Sure.
like
Sure.
on a mission with Tim Grover,
Mm-hmm.
back on it. Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman is brought in, Tony Kukoc is playing at a high level, Ron Harper, Luke Longley, Randy Brown, and all the rest. So, Bob, when it comes to the 96 Bulls, for me, it's all about, like, can I learn the triangle, and can we win? What can we take from this, watching them on both ends of the floor, the offensive greatness, the defensive intensity? How can I take that as an athlete at 17, 18 years old? But I have a feeling for you, the impact of the 96 Bulls is probably tied to some 11s and more of the sneaker culture.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say that I think, 92 Dream Team in the Olympics is the catalyst behind the globalization of the popularity of not just basketball as a sport, but basketball as a participatory sport. And that's the sort of genesis of where we are now, 2024, where it's the number one, across the board for people actively having a ball in their hand and playing, not just being spectators. Um, and I think 96 is equal, if not greater, because it sort of pits Jordan for the first time since he was in high school, not making varsity, as the underdog. And, I think the script that plays out from there paints him as the ultimate champion and really raises it, amplifies the effectiveness of the NBA to encourage and inspire and motivate people to play basketball. And Jordan being on the top and being that figure where he is like face to face with Michael Jackson as the most popular person in the world. I mean, it's insane at that point. Um, and what it does for the sport is it just helps it evolve. And I don't think as great as Hakeem was and the Rockets and you know their great backcourt of New York players with Kenny Smith and Mario Elie, the Knicks teams that lose. I mean, the first three-peat for the Bulls, the Detroit Pistons, none of them have the global impact on the game that the 96 Bulls do. And then when you factor in what it does for sneaker culture, Jordan in 95 comes out with the 11s. And then in 95, 96, the 11s become that shoe that sort of usher in this whole new design wave with the patent leather and this the shoes sort of elevating from performance wear to iconic design art. And it's just it's similar to like the Jordan 1 when it debuts. There's just no going back. It's a new era, and Jordan and the Bulls in 96, 95, 96, it's that team. They break the record for most wins in the regular season. They win a chip, I mean, their championships in 97, 98, mega important, but I think 96, that's the one. That might very well be the best basketball team since Dr. James Naismith rolled out the peach baskets and the soccer ball December 21st, 1891. Might just be.
And that's part of the beauty of these discussions. And you hit it on the head with the Jordan 11. I mean, I'm sure before then some people wore some Dunks and some AF1s to their prom, but The Jordan 11
You wore them to your
became
prom?
the no, but you saw the photos, and then later on, that became the shoe that people would dress up to a different level,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember the first time I saw them, whether you're talking about them in white, whether you're talking about them in black. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they are one of the dopest shoes ever created. And
Ever.
then you go back to the basketball part of this. And last week when I was setting up the tiers of this all-time bracket exercise and talking about some of the great postseason runs, the 96 Bulls go 15-3. They only lose one game in the East on their way to their finals matchups from finals matchup with the Sonics, and that's to a damn good New York Knicks team in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Miami, they beat the
Mm-hmm.
Knicks in 5, and then the Orlando Magic, who are the defending Eastern Conference champions. Now, granted, Jordan had a chip on his shoulder. The Magic were a little bit banged up, but they sweep them. And
Yeah.
then they take on a very, very, very good. I almost want to say great, but borderline great Seattle Supersonics team led by Hall of Famer Gary Payton,
Mm-hmm.
led by at that time all NBA caliber power forward Sean Kemp,
Yep.
along
And
with some other
Detlef
very
Schrempf,
good players. Detlef Schrempf, Hersey
who
Hawkins.
was
The list
insane
goes
nice,
on.
yo. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Bulls go up 3-0 and they win it in 6. Gary Payton has said publicly that, if George Karl had put me on MJ earlier in the series, it would have been different. We know how Gary likes to tell his stories. But the other thing that I want to touch on about the Bulls, and I think it gets lost sometimes, and obviously the addition of Rodman makes people realize, okay, this just wasn't the MJ and Scotty show
Mm-hmm.
uh, with the triangle offensively. Like, this team defensively is one of the great defensive teams of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Versatility, tenacity, could pick you up full court, and before you know it, there's 10 on the shot clock, and you are completely discombobulated. Or they can just dig in with you in the half court and battle you. Um, Knowing, Bob, you didn't live in front of an NBA television screen like I did, but being from New York and knowing the Knicks of the 90s and knowing all those battles with the Bulls, can you just describe quickly what you remember about watching the Chicago Bulls digging their heels in and playing defense in the 90s?
Um, I can't say specifically, but I can tell you that, you know, um, what we were seeing on television was very different than what we were seeing in the playgrounds of New York. You know, I think there's this sort of belief that, the playground follows what is seen on the screen, but it's actually the opposite. When the NBA was like bully ball, and I mean, there were clearly some fancy ball players in that era, but there were hard fouls. There were like big, linebacker type dudes, who were just going out there to
Mm-hmm.
foul, and but meanwhile in the playgrounds of New York City, the game was evolving to a level that we see now. And it's been like that. Pee Wee Kirkland even said, like, in the, what was created in on the asphalt in the '60s is what we see on the NBA today, and it's the same thing in the '90s. So, yes, I mean, people here in my city, you know, were playing hard, did want to win. But the way that the game was approached in terms of ball handling, passing, dribbling, inventiveness, we weren't seeing that in the NBA in that era in the way that we see starting in the 2000s. So, um, I at that point, like, the NBA is like, I'm hearing about stuff at the park, and memorizing the stuff because everybody's talking about the Bulls. But I can't really tell you like what their defense was like because I was at Brookville Park in Queens, playing with Rayford Alston for one game. I was, uptown at Riverbank State Park. I was, you know, I was traveling, and my greatest memory of the Jordan 11s is the How Can I Be Down conference in Miami, which eventually gets shut down by the city because so many hip hop industry execs were going down there and partying and shutting down streets and getting overpopulated. But Loud Records, Steve Rifkin, became friends with me and Stretch. We had a radio show that premiered some of their greatest artists, Wu Tang, Mobb Deep, when they were unsigned, right? So Steve in '95 is like, "Yo, Bob, suit up for Loud," and I'm like, "Yeah, sure, bet I'll run with you." And I forget the name of the park. It was off of Collins or Washington or something, 14th Street. It's a famous playground in Miami, in South Beach. And yeah. And so we playing against my old employer, Def Jam. And I spanked them. And that game, and now this was unheard of because back in the 90s, brands weren't really seeding product to just regular what we would call nowadays influencers, But for some reason, Jordan gave me the 11s 3 months before they came out. So I'm in Miami. I got the 11s on. Ain't nobody seen them in real person in real time in person. And I'm on a court dropping 25 against Def Jam, playing for Loud in the Jordan 11s. And forget about it. People were like, "Yo, like, where'd you get those?" Da, da, da. And I'm gassed because I mean, aside from wearing them to the prom, like probably 5 year classmates did, they were wild comfortable. I loved playing in them. So I get back uptown to Manhattan, and my dear friend Cotty, who grew up on my block, 97th Street. I'm like, "Yo, Cotty, I don't really need these. I played in them. I'm gonna pass them on to you." I gave them to him. He's wearing them, only worn once, right? He's wearing them on a train ride, either the 2 or 3 downtown, and a kid from Harlem offers him $300 in '95, which that's unheard of to pay for a pair of sneakers. But they offered him $300. Yo, I'll buy them sneakers off your feet right now, B. Because they wasn't out. And at that point, you could not, no way, no how, unless you were an NBA player or a college player, get a pair of sneakers pre-release. So it's a interesting time for me personally in the evolution of my being a sneaker personality as well. And I have fond memories of that.
So before the Jordan 11 is released, you wear them in a game on South Beach, score 25 points, bring them back to Manhattan, give them to your boy. He wears them once and then sells them on the 2-3 train for
He didn't sell them. He didn't sell them.
He didn't sell them.
You bugging. Yo, you bugging.
Wow,
Yeah, he turned them down.
Does he still have them?
I don't know. I doubt it. Nah, Cotty, a lot of us uptown, we were very functional about our sneakers and wore them. It was more important to like be seen in a dope outfit, than just having them like, collect dust in the closet to show off. Because, the evolution of the sneakerhead and starting with the social media is that you can become an international celebrity and never wear your shoes. You just could show photos of them. It's very different, to the Clark Kent's, rest in peace, a god in that space where he was that dude that was gonna like dip up his outfit because he wanted to be seen in the freshest sneakers that nobody else had. Very different sort of approach, to it. But there we have it, man. I'd love to talk about the Celtics and the Lakers of the '80s, but we'll do that next week. We're going to have more recaps, more forecasts, more dives into the archives. People, this is B-Ball Radio. Myself, playground, outdoor basketball, sage, and Eric Newman, Coach E-New, NBA analyst, historian. This is B-Ball Radio. We want you to follow on all platforms. We want you to share on whatever social media possible. And we appreciate you listening. And please give us feedback. You can DM us on our individual handles. I'm Cool Bob Love. Eric is Eric W. Newman, or B-Ball Radio. And we would love to hear your feedback about what you think about our show. Peace. B-Ball Radio.